Yeah,
Like,
I
if you
don't
want to
know.
talk about science being science, men are men and women are women. I think that's like as basic as you can be. There is
Sure.
no like Joe Biden said, there are at least three genders. What?
Today we have a very special guest, good friend of mine. He's about as right wing as you can get on the conservative spectrum. If he could have Donald Trump's baby, he probably would.
It's true. I tried.
It's Sam Mason, everybody. So welcome, Sam.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for having me, dude.
Totally. Well, I've told you a couple times, Sam. I had Trevor Delker on a couple episodes ago,
Yes.
and he's identifies left wing progressive.
Uh,
And the main reason I wanted to have the two of you on is because one, you're both ends of the spectrum,
yeah. Yeah.
and things are incredibly polarized.
Yeah.
And it's pretty obvious if you look at your Instagram how you feel about the other side.
Yes.
But I think it's important to hear ideas kind of rationalized
Uh-huh.
instead of just saying like I'm right, you're wrong.
Right.
And Trevor and I felt like I had a really good conversation with him, and I'm really open-minded. And I guess to jump into it, how did you get so involved in politics? Because I remember you were always the funny guy in
Yeah.
junior high, high school. I didn't talk to you too much in
Yeah.
high school, but always hilarious. And then it seemed like a couple months after your mission, all of a sudden you were just like had all these Trump ties
Yeah.
and got really into politics.
Yeah. So basically, I went on my mission to South Texas, and which is basically, I just tell people I served in northern Mexico because it was Mexico. Like,
Yeah.
they talk about the border, but like the actual like border was like 50 miles north.
Yeah.
So everyone in my mission was illegal. So that was fun. But I almost feel like I need to like explain what a mission is, but then I realize most people listening to this are probably gonna be LDS, and if they're not, they're going to hell. Just kidding, but not really. But anyway, no. So I served on the border, and so I got to like see. So like Trump, I went summer of 2015.
Yeah.
He had announced he was running like 2 months before I left, and I thought he was like a clown, because I remember I was like big for Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, and Ben Carson. And I literally thought like he was a plant, because all the pictures of like him and all the stuff with him meeting with Hillary, all the like his wedding, like I invited Hillary to my wedding and all that stuff. So I was like, dude, he's literally just like, he's just lying. So I didn't like him at all. And so, but then I was like serving on the border, and you start to like see the stuff he was saying about the border and stuff was actually like, okay, maybe he's actually right about a few things. Like, there was a time I was teaching a family, and we were in this super Reesty neighborhood, and we actually heard like one night, because you hear gunshots all the time down there, because
Yeah.
like people would tell you like if something ever happens, just don't call the police because they're paid off by the cartels. And like, this is in Texas. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So one night we heard like gunshots, and we're like, all right, whatever, no diff, it's Tuesday night, gunshots, of course. But then it turns out it was the cousin of this dude we were teaching. It was him, and he had like a 3-year-old son with him in his car. And the cartel one car pulled in front of him, so like stopped him, and then one car pulled up right behind him, and these dudes got out like dressed, I don't know how they knew this, but like dressed as like the hitman, like with the suit and tie on,
Yeah.
and just opened fired on him and his son in his car. And they said like the kid was shot, like, and the kid was 3, the kid was shot like 47 times or something.
Holy.
Yeah, so they were just completely annihilated. All the dudes that killed them were illegals, cartel. And it was like, okay, well, that's not good.
How do you know that they're illegals?
So then, like, the cops that did get involved, that I assume maybe weren't as crooked as the rest, they told, because, like I said, it was the dude we were teaching's cousin. So he was, like, super involved in it. And they found one of the dudes that did it, and he was, like, some illegal MS-13 guy or whatever. But it was like, okay, whoa, like, why are these dudes here? And, like, you could see Mexico from, like, where I lived. Like, there
Yeah.
wasn't a wall. It was just desert. And it was like, okay, well, I feel like when you go to bed at night, you close your door, you lock your door. Like Biden, he's been president for, 2 weeks. They have a wall around the Capitol. And it's like, wait, so it's okay that you have a Capitol around the White House, but you can't have a border, a wall around us to protect us? Like, that seems a little weird to me.
Right.
So the whole wall thing, it was like, okay, we definitely need a wall. Not because you hate these people. Like, I met the people. They're great people. But it's like laws are laws. Like we have laws. We can't just like let's just ship people in from China if we're gonna just say, well, let's just let you in. We'll pay for your healthcare. We'll pay for your school.
Right, right.
Like these things cost money.
So sounds like you got passionate or into politics because I'd imagine in 2016, 2017, 2018, there was a lot of talk about the wall.
Oh yeah.
Right?
All
Building
it
the
was
wall, that was like on the big media,
Yeah.
like who should pay for it, whatnot. And you kind of saw that firsthand.
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of, you're just like, okay, yeah, we freaking need this.
Yeah, because like I said, I thought Trump was a clown. So all of a sudden you'd be, and like you never talk about politics on your mission.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden you'd be like in a lesson or something, or you'd be with a member, and they'd start talking about like, oh, Trump es el diablo, like Trump is the devil, and all this stuff. And then you're not like defending it, but you're curious because like I don't get to watch the news, so I'd be like, okay, well, like what did he do? Like what did he say? And they'd be like, I remember one time a lady, she was born in Texas, so she's like a U.S. citizen. She's like, well, he said if he wins, he's going to deport all people that are like of Mexican heritage, like even if their parents were born in Mexico, but they're born in the U.S. And I was like, I don't think he did.
Yeah.
I don't think he said that. And so it's just stuff like that. You're like, well, that doesn't even make sense. And then you'd ask someone else, hey, can you look into this? And they're like, he didn't say that.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, he never, like, come on, he's not going to do that. So it's just little stuff like that then you start to look into it. And it's like, maybe there's a reason that like, because even like Bill Clinton in the 90s was like, we need to build a wall. And they didn't do it. And it's like, why did we never do it?
Uh-huh.
Because like Biden on day one, he signed a thing that was, we're just stopping all construction of the wall. And they sent a letter to ICE saying for the next like 100 days, you can't deport anybody. And it's like, okay, well, why are you doing that?
Uh-huh.
Like, it's just weird stuff like that. That's like, okay.
So I'm curious what your thoughts are, because obviously I feel like the main conservative idea regarding border control is that anyone who is like illegal or in the States illegally should just be deported out, right? Where do you agree with that, or what's kind of your stance on that?
So that's where it gets tricky, because it's like so many of the people, they hate the term anchor baby, but like that's a lot of people in my mission where like you would have a mom and a dad that were illegal, and they would come to the U.S. and have a baby like immediately, or they'd be pregnant when they'd come, and that way the kid is like a citizen of the United States and of Mexico. So then
because he was born there.
Yes, because if you're born like with Ted Cruz, he was born in Canada, but his like parents were citizens or whatever, so he's Canadian and U.S. citizenship. So a lot of people, if they do that, that's where it's like anchor baby, because then you can't deport the parents because the kid is like anchored in Texas. Like,
sure.
You can't deport this U.S. citizen. It's just like, I just feel like it's shame on us that we let it get to the point it's at, because it's like now it's such a mess. Like, what do you do? Because you have these
because
people,
we didn't like set stipulations.
Yeah, like
with,
this
like,
is
the anchor baby.
Yeah, because like even like with taxes, like people were mad Trump only paid like $750 in taxes, but it's like I had a business law professor, and he's a super liberal guy, and he's like, yeah, like I mean that's legal, like you can
it's tax strategy.
Yeah, like if you have the right accountant, you know the right things, you can get away with like paying nothing in taxes, and that's just the laws we set up.
Yeah.
So you can't be mad at him that he's just saying, well, I mean, if I can pay less in taxes, I'm gonna do it.
Right. And I know, talking with Trevor the other day, one of the points he brought up, because the thing he's really passionate about, right, is obviously the people who are making a lot of money should pay more in taxes so that we can fund all these other government programs and help the poor, basically. And I would imagine that people are upset by that, because if this rich guy who has potential to fund a lot of programs, like millions of dollars, right? If he's not paying any taxes, it's like they use that as an idea to identify like, well, this is the problem. Like this guy could be paying taxes and help a lot of people, but he's not.
Right.
But
Right.
Is that kind of the idea?
I think that's how they see it. Yeah. I mean, I definitely don't see it that way, because the way with taxes makes sense to me is like the way. I feel like I'm like doing an advertisement for like the church right now. I haven't even gone to church in a year, but here I am like freaking. I sound like I'm Elder Holland over here. Let's just get my turkey neck out.
Just go.
Yeah, but so like with church, it's like tithing is 10%, and so like growing up, I had what was he? A brother Clark, the dude in the YSA.
Yeah, one of the
he
leaders.
was he was
church.
for like a month. He was my young men's president or whatever.
Okay.
And he owns like some like I think it's like a air purifier, water purifier company.
Yep.
So he's like a gajillionaire, but like he pays 10% in taxes. And then I'd have other leaders that were like, super, like not a lot of money, they pay 10%, and the churches run great.
Sure.
Like it doesn't run out of money, because God says, well, look, just give me 10% and we're good. So with the government, it doesn't make sense to me. Why is one person going to go pay 42% and another person's going to pay like 7?
Right, right. And I mean, even on that church idea, you remember a while ago, somehow it was leaked, like how much money the church has
Yeah.
or something, and there was like a big,
Yeah, they had like a gajillion
it was
dollars.
like 500 billion or something nuts, and people were like outraged,
Yeah.
or a lot of people were,
Yeah.
right? But that just goes to show, like, and that's only based off of 10%
Right.
of tithing,
Right.
which is like you could say a form of like godly tax.
Right. Right.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
So your idea is that, well, if the government needs more than that, it doesn't make sense, because obviously this nonprofit organization has tons of money, and I'm sure it's more complicated.
Well,
than
right,
that,
yeah.
But like,
Well, because a lot
that
of
makes
it is
sense.
like the government just wastes so much money. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't need all the money it's getting. Like, I think I might have sent it to you. There was a thing. It came out the other day that this Biden appointee lady, she lost $600 million in a Nigerian scam of coronavirus money. $600 million. That's taxpayer money. So that's 600. That's over $500 million she lost.
Wow.
So it's like you just have all this spending that's like it doesn't even make sense. Like some of the stuff we're funding, it's like, what are you doing?
Sure. And I've heard that a lot of people they're like, they don't trust taxes as much because you don't get like a financial statement or like an itemized receipt
Right.
of what all your taxes was used for.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and then the way like the brackets work, it's like it's insane, because it's like once you get to this certain bracket, it's like you're incentivized to make less money to pay less in taxes. So it's like I remember, I don't know if it's going to pass, but when Biden was running, he was saying if like your parents make, I think it was combined more than like less than 120,000 a year, that you'd get like free something with like community college or something.
Sure.
But it's like think about it, if you're two parents, if you're making like $115,000 a year combined and you get offered a raise, like wouldn't you just turn the raise down, because otherwise you're going to pay for your kids' college?
True.
You don't get the raise, the kids got free college. So it's like it's just the brackets, like just it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like if you could just set it at a certain rate and then realize how much wasteful spending there is.
Right.
Because like, have you heard of the penny plan with taxes?
I have not.
So it's a super good plan. It's basically, I think it was Rand Paul is the one that started it, and basically every branch, like every government group, like FBI, everything, I think it's a year, out of every dollar they spend, they have to find a way to cut 1 penny.
Okay.
And if every branch did that over, I think it was like 7 or 8 years, that alone would balance the budget.
Wow.
And that's just 1% a year from all these different groups.
That's crazy.
So if you just kept doing it, you'd end up, fixing it.
Yeah.
But they don't do it, just like they don't do term limits.
Uh-huh.
They were dang sure to make sure the president has a term limit. But like Ted Cruz this week put a thing out, and he's always the one that does it, to say let's get term limits for Congress people and senators, and they always vote it down. Because it's like they love the power because they get all this money.
Right. So I want to drill down on the tax the rich thing.
Yeah.
Right. I thought that was a fair point of like the government probably doesn't need as much money, more than 10%, just based off it, like comparing that to the church. But what are your thoughts on that idea of people who are making over $400,000 a year should what do you think that's ethical to take that money and fund like universal basic income or like health care or things like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so basically, like I said, I don't. Because it doesn't, like I said, to me, it doesn't make sense. Like, why is it that those people that make $400,000 a year, why are they considered selfish? Because they want to keep more of their money. But the people that want to take the money, why are they not considered, like, greedy? Like, why is it selfish? If I work, why is it bad I want to keep my money? But then the people that want to take my money, why are they not considered greedy? You know what I mean? Because like I want to keep my money. And I don't blame these people that like will do anything to keep it, because it's like, well, you work. Like even our boy Joe Rogan, like that's why he went to Texas, because he was saying like how the bracket he would be put in, he'd be paying, I think it was like 54% in taxes.
He's gonna get raped.
Yeah, so he's like, he's like literally over half the time I'm literally working for the government. He's like, that doesn't even make sense.
True. Yeah.
So whoever has to deal with taxes, it's a mess. But to me, it doesn't make sense that like, okay, this person's going to pay way more. Because you also got to think about it. The people making all this money, I mean, how many jobs are they creating? So if you cut their, like, how much money they're making, they're going to have to lay people off.
Yeah. It's interesting because I could see both sides of it, where it's like, I could see a lot of people upset at it because one thing that's cool about living in America is obviously it's an anomaly, or the 1% or whatever that are that rich. But I think it's the idea that it's possible to be that rich.
Right.
Like, there's a chance that you could blow up and make it and be a millionaire, versus like in other countries, like, that's not even possible. Right. So I think there's a chance that you could win the lottery, so to speak, and make it. But then I also see, like Trevor was really passionate about, like, there is a lot of poverty in America. Like, there are a lot of people struggling, or people who can't afford to get health care. And to him, that was like the most viable option, was to basically take from the rich, people who have more than what they need, and be able to, really help people who need it.
All right. See, that's the point where I don't feel like the government, I don't feel like it's their job to decide what percent of someone else's money to take. Like,
why is that?
Because I don't feel like, I mean, if we're a free country, it doesn't make sense to me that the government would just say, all right, well, you're doing well, so we're just going to take this percent of your money and give it to these people. Like, to me, that just seems so unethical.
Right.
Because, like you said, there are things in place to help people. Like, there's, like, obviously you shouldn't live on food stamps. You shouldn't be on welfare your whole life. But, like, there are a reason we have those things.
Sure.
Because most people, I feel like, at some point in your life will be on them. But then the idea is, well, you can build yourself out of it. Like, let's not just have generational poverty. Because that's one thing Trump did that was great, was these opportunity zones for, like, African Americans, which is why he won so many over for his second term, or his second election, whatever. Because he created these opportunity zones, which are basically, they're incentivizing people to start businesses in these poor areas, and then all these people are getting jobs and lifting themselves out of poverty.
Sure.
So, I mean, that's basically how I feel about that. Yeah.
You're right. So, and I'm also really curious about this, because me and Trevor talked a lot about universal basic income, and because he talked about his idea was that if everyone in the U.S. got $500 a month, right, and I haven't looked into it or fact checked it, but he said that wouldn't increase inflation at that rate. But assuming that people got $500 a month, that it would help a lot of people. And I pushed back a little bit on it, because it was like, well, I don't want, like, my first thought is like, oh, people, there'd just be a bunch of freeloaders. Yeah. Right? Yeah. People that would just live off of $500 a month and make it work. Right. But he was saying that, like, most people, like, just cost of living can't live off of $500 a month. That at least as a college student, like, even that's pushing it, living off of ramen. So, like, $500 a month would be just enough to just help people with basic needs. Yeah. And that it wouldn't increase inflation, and that he also said that it wouldn't just be funded from rich people paying taxes, but also larger corporations that have a larger, like, profit margin that could afford to fund that. If that makes sense. Yeah. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on it.
I don't know, with that sort of stuff, I mean, I just go to like $500, like, why not make it 5,000? Like, where's this money coming from? You know what I mean?
Well, because he was saying that, like, $500 was like the limit for inflation.
Right, but, like, where is the government's giving you this money? So
it would come from, it'd be from taxes, right? He was saying, he talked a lot about Amazon. Yeah. And I haven't seen their financial statements or whatever, but assuming that they have a large profit margin on the income that they're bringing in, like, they could afford to lend that or give that much money to the government, right? That would be a viable way, because in a way Amazon's not hurting, right? Because they have more than enough to take care of themselves. Right. And those large corporations would be able to help a lot of people.
No, see, I think that's disgusting. Because it's like, with Amazon, why would any company want to be incentivized to get successful? Because then you get to a certain point, the government's just going to say, hey, like, Amazon, you've done great, but now we're just going to take all your money and give it to everybody else. So it's like, why would there be another, like, Jeff Bezos is a huge liberal, by the way. I think he's disgusting, because he bought, like, all, like, the Washington Post or all that crap. But I think it's beautiful. Like, he started Amazon in his garage. And then look at him now. He's the richest man in the world. I guess Elon snuck up on him. But he's, like, worth, like, what, like $200 billion? Like,
insane amount.
That's beautiful. Like it doesn't make sense. Like, why would anyone want to start a business and get successful, try to get rich, try to get, a nice car, a nice house, if you know that you get to a certain point, you'll get a knock at the door saying, oh, hey, by the way, you're doing really well, so we're just going to take your money because you don't need it that much. These other people need it more.
Interesting.
Like, that will kill all incentive of everybody. Because then why would anyone ever want to work more hours, work harder, get a better job, study for that test? Because it's like, oh, it doesn't matter. Oh, college is free. I can take this class as many times as I want. Like, no. Like, why don't you just get it done and get out?
Yeah.
Like, I've been working my freaking tookus off trying to get... I'm supposed to graduate this semester right now, so let's hope I can sneak it. But, yeah, it would just kill all incentive for anything. If I knew that, okay, every month I'll just get this money. Like, I don't have to, hey... that just, to me, kills it. Because, like, on my mission with those people I was talking about... Like, down there, they would all live off of food stamps. They would get all this money. They got, like, there was this one lady, she was constantly in the hospital, and she would just laugh because she's like, I'm not paying for any of these medical bills.
Yeah.
Because she was illegal. And she would laugh. She literally was laughing. She was like, yeah, like, I don't pay for any of this. And we're like, that seems weird, but, I mean, whatever. But, like, all these people, they had no incentive. They were just living. They were just, oh, okay, I can go to the hospital, fill it up. Because, like, that's the thing with, if you have free health care, everybody is just going to go to the doctor for everything.
Yeah.
Like, I have an aunt who died of brain cancer. If everyone in the world was saying, well, I want to get my head scanned, I want to get everything scanned to make sure I'm fine, the people that actually have it would never be able to go because there'd be a line out the door.
Right. So, and I do want to jump into healthcare because I know you have a lot of thoughts on that too. But I guess just tying that back into like the universal basic income UBI thing, you said that it would kill your incentive. You wouldn't be incentivized to work hard.
Yeah.
Assuming even if it was only $500 a month.
Oh yeah.
So tell me that, because like if you were to, obviously you go to school so that you can get a job that makes a lot of money.
Yeah.
And obviously $500 isn't going to be a big deal at that point, right?
Yeah.
So how would that kill your motivation?
So my thing, I would just say a counter question. How about instead of giving me $500, how about you just charge me less taxes? Because at the end of the day, isn't it just tax money? So why don't you just lower taxes? And then, because like everyone's like freaking out about like hey, we're getting our stimulus money, or we're getting like our tax returns. But like the tax returns one is hilarious because it's like people are acting like they're getting like this, Scooby snack from the government. It's like, dude, it's your money. Like, you earned that money. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, I get this, this money, in every February or every whenever March. And it's like, dude, that's your money.
That's your money.
So like, how about instead of giving us the stimulus stuff or giving us our tax returns, how about you just charge us less taxes?
Right.
So that's why I feel that way about the $500. It's like, dude, if you just charge less taxes, you wouldn't need to do it.
That is interesting and it would be interesting to look at because most people probably pay at least $500 in taxes a month.
Oh, sure.
You think?
I feel like the average dude, like if you have a full-time job, like working, like making more than like minimum wage.
Yeah.
Like if you're not a college student, basically, they're probably.
Yeah, that would be interesting to look at because I don't know how much that would be. But I guess if you were full time, a full time working adult that makes $15 an hour or whatever, it's probably close. Right?
Yeah, because even over the summer, I was making
because taxes is like 30%.
I'm trying to think what it is for Utah. I could have told you like 2 weeks ago because I was looking at my pay stubs from my summer job and I was like throwing up how much I paid in taxes.
I think it's 30%.
I think it is because because like over the summer I'd work like in between like 40 to 60 hours a week, and I remember I'd look at my paycheck sometimes and I'd see like what the total actually was, right? And I'd get super excited, and then I'd look at how much was taken out from taxes, and I was like, oh, okay.
It's like, well, I'll get it back later.
Yeah, no, literally, I was like, well, I guess I'll get it back in freaking next year, dude. But it's like, so I mean, for me, that was probably almost $500 a month. Actually, yeah, probably over $500 a month over the summer.
But that is true though, because like, say it is 30%, and those on YouTube fact check it in the comments for us. But like, let's say it's 30%, you make $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month. Yeah. That's $600 in taxes that you are paying. Right. So that is a fair point, I would think.
Yeah. See, my thing is like, and look, I know tons of people that are liberal and they're great. I love them. I feel like with them, they're more focused on like the empathy and like the feelings of things rather than like how are we actually gonna get this done.
Because it would feel good. Like, I would probably like seeing $500 coming into my bank account instead of it just being taken out of my taxes.
Well, it's good to think like, hey, this money is going to help get these people out of poverty. This money's going to help this or this or this or this. But then it's like you got to think like, okay, but like how though? Like you can say let's have free healthcare for everybody, but how are you going to get that? You'll have to raise taxes. Like it was like Bernie Sanders that one time. They finally cornered him in like I think it was a Fox News interview. They finally cornered him, and they're like, "How are you going to raise? Like, you can't just say you're going to have free healthcare because if people hear that, they're like, oh, that's great. But then, how though? And then finally, he's like, well, yeah, you got to raise taxes. And it's like, oh, there it is. So it's like all these things. It's like, oh, let's have free college. But it's like, well, what percentage of people are actually going to college right now?
Right.
Like my parents aren't going to college. Your parents, my grandparents, all these people are not going to college. So it doesn't make sense. Like, oh, they're all going to pay more in taxes. So everybody can go to college and take all these stupid classes. Oh, let's get an art degree. Come on.
Right.
Let's get a gender studies degree, and then you're mad you didn't get a job. It's like, dude, get a job in something that people need. Like I was going to be a dentist, and then I took like a couple classes, and I realized I hate this. And so now I'm in a business degree, yeah. Because it's like I just had nothing to offer as far as like medical stuff goes. Because
Yeah, it just wasn't for you.
Oh, yeah.
That makes sense. Well, that's interesting, man. So I do want to jump into healthcare because I know you've told me in the past you've had like some pretty strong opinions on like Obamacare and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
What?
The Unforgettable Care Act, dude. Yeah, what are you talking about?
Let's just jump into it, man. What are your thoughts on it?
No, and that's another thing. Like so many of these things, like taxes, the border, healthcare, it's all just a mess, and it's all like I mean, it's not our fault, but it's like politicians' fault because they just get paid off by all these, big pharma and all that. Because like here's the thing I brought up to a liberal friend the other day.
Yeah.
And he didn't even know it was a thing. So back in like December, Trump did this executive order that was like slashing the price of like insulin for people that didn't have insurance,
right? Like
by a huge margin. And that was like even liberals were like, oh, this is great. Like everyone was like, this is a great thing because now people who don't have insurance can get insulin. And then for no reason, last week Biden undid it. And it's like, wait a minute, I thought he was this champion of healthcare, and he didn't say why. He was like, well, why did you do that? Like, why would you? Like, he didn't say, okay, because he just restored it and said, okay, now you're paying the full price for insulin. But he didn't replace it with something. Like, you would think, like, oh, we're doing this, but there was no but. It was just, no, it's going back. Do you pay the full?
Yeah. And there wasn't, like, a reason
no.
why.
And I mean, I don't know for sure. I would assume it's something to do with, maybe he got money from a pharmaceutical company or some sort of, medical company.
Yeah.
Because, like, that was a good point that Bernie Sanders made in, like, a Democrat debate, like 2 summers ago whenever they were debating. I think that's when it was. But he literally made a point where he's like, you watch. He's like, during this, like, commercial break, there's going to be an ad for some sort of, like, insurance company or, like, some sort of medical company. And then I think there was. So it's like they're the ones buying off all these politicians. So, like, when you talk about their super rich people, which I would agree with, like, Trevor on a lot of things, I'm sure. Because one thing I do agree with is, which I don't know if he would agree with this, but so many politicians, if you look at them, they're millionaires.
Yeah.
And it's like, how did you get that money? Because, like, there was one just the other day. What was it? Like, even, like, and people on the right are horrible at it, too. Like, Mitch McConnell in, like, 2019 got all this money. It just came out from this company that was basically against, because there was all the problem with the voting machines in the last November.
Yeah.
He basically got all this money, all these donations from all these companies that were against, securing the vote. So, of course, you have these politicians, and, like Mike Lee got all this money from, like, Facebook and Google.
Sure.
And all this stuff like that. And, like, even, like, Obama. He was president, and then all of a sudden, he gets, like, $50 million from Netflix. It's like, what? And, like, even in, like, Hillary, she's giving a speech, she's getting $600,000.
Yeah.
And then people, they don't look at it, and it's like, this isn't her just getting paid $600. This is them paying her off. Because maybe she did something for them when she was a senator, or maybe she's promising, hey, you give me this money, I will do this if I get elected.
There's just a lot of, like, under the table deals
that absolutely.
You don't hear about. And I'm really curious what your thought on this is, because I think since the election, I honestly haven't looked at much political news, like on the various news stations, whether that be Fox, CNN, whatever. Yeah. I've just been, like, so turned off by it because I feel like everything has an agenda. Both sides are just showing you stuff that they want you to see.
Right.
And I'm curious, like, what your thought is on how to get good political information that's not just keeping you in an echo chamber of what you agree with. Right. Because I talked a lot with Trevor about this too. Like, I I used to lean really conservative, but I think I'm a little more open-minded now.
Yeah.
Just because I found myself in such a echo chamber. I watched what's the name of that documentary that just came out? It's The Social Dilemma. Have you heard of that?
I never heard of it.
It just kind of talked about like social media and how it like the algorithms show you stuff that you're just more likely to see
Right.
and spend more time seeing. So if it's stuff you agree with, it's going to show you more of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just curious, what have you found is like the best way to find like good sources that's not just emotional clickbait stuff?
Right, yeah. So for me, and it's hard to do, because if you see something you like, you're like, oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah.
You need to look and see, like, first of all, look who's saying it. And then you can go, okay, well, does this person have a good track record or a bad track record?
Uh-huh.
And then actually just, like, look into it through other places. Because, like, for instance, the other, like, AOC, our favorite person, my favorite politician in the world, she made this whole freaking thing about how, oh my gosh, when there was the Capitol riots, like I was like cornered in a bathroom and I was under attack, and this whole story, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, she was almost killed.
Yeah.
And then it came out yesterday, the building she was in they weren't even in the building. So she lied. But this was this huge national story about, oh my gosh, this congresswoman was almost killed. She lied.
Which you could just infer was just to like make Trump supporters look bad.
Yes,
right?
and don't even get me started. This whole new impeachment, dude, is the biggest sham. You can look exactly at what he said. He never said, I want you to storm it, I want you to break it. No, he literally said, I can't wait for all these patriots to come and like peacefully. I can't remember the quote exactly, but he literally says like peacefully come, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And somehow they're like, oh, that's a dog whistle. What? What are you talking about? No, it's not. Like, so that's a dog whistle. But then all of a sudden, Joe Biden's family getting $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow. That is, oh, well, hey, we don't need to talk about that.
And when did that happen?
That was I think that was like 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
is that the point Trump was trying to bring up a bunch of the debates about?
And then Joe's like, oh, because even like the head investigator, one of the head investigators of the Hunter Biden thing, like died 2 days ago.
Interesting.
It's the same thing with Epstein. It's like there was the judge, the lady, I think she was in like New York, I think. She was the judge over his case, and all of a sudden, like her son, someone knocked at her door. It was like pretending to be like a UPS man. He shot and killed her son and shot her husband. Her husband was like put in critical condition.
Huh.
And it's like just stuff like that, and it's like people don't look into this. Or like the Clinton hit list.
Yeah.
When people are like, the odds of all these people dying that are this close to Clintons is like 1 in like a quintillion or something. It's insane.
And how did you find out that kind of stuff? Because I feel like, and maybe it's just not being fed to me.
Yeah.
But I feel like on YouTube you don't see stuff like that, but yet you're obviously reading and seeing stuff like that that's not super publicized. Like where did you find that? Is that just like a random post?
No, that'll
on
be stuff you'll
Instagram,
see it like you'll just see it on like Instagram, or you'll see it on Reddit, and then you click on it and then you got to look it up and see like, okay, this guy, blah 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 blah, and then you can find it. But then that's the other funny thing that. Like, I had a liberal friend the other day that was like, oh, that's not true. Like, all of social media is so liberal, like, you can't even... And it's obvious, and it's... I mean, look, if what's the... Zuckerberg, he's a liberal. I mean, if you want to start a giant company, like I was saying with Bezos, like, that's great. Go it, do it, run it the way you want, but then you can't say, oh, no, we're a free platform. Because they're not. Because, like, why did you ban Ron Paul? Ron Paul is a libertarian who was, like, beloved by everybody. Yeah. And all of a sudden, like 2 weeks ago, he was just like, yeah, all of a sudden my Facebook was blocked. I'm locked out of my Facebook. And he's like, I never even got like a notification I broke a policy.
Huh.
And it's just stuff like that. And so like there was all these Reddit pages I used to be on that overnight were just gone.
Wow.
And it was because like, because you look it up and they're like, oh, there was some people in those pages that were sympathetic with the Capitol riots. So we had to shut down the whole Reddit. And it's like, but you allow Reddit pages of like child porn, of incest, of... That's fine, but you can't have someone saying maybe they agree with the riots.
So I'm curious about that, because that's also a hot topic at the moment with the freedom of speech on private platforms like Twitter. Because I feel like I've come to the conclusion that it's like, it's just because people argue that like you should be able to post anything or like say anything. And I can also see like some issues with that, because it's like if you could just post and say anything, Twitter and whatnot would just be the next like, right, it would just be awful. But it's like but I think it's just like unfortunate that a private company has become the most
Oh yeah.
The biggest form of communication.
No, yeah. Though, like I was saying, like I think the fact if they can make a company that's that big and that many people are on it doing that, like
Yeah.
like I said, go for it. But you don't get to say it's a free speech platform, except unless you say this or this. It's like, well, no, then you're not. Which I think is funny because they're always like, well, if you don't like our platform, go make a new one. And then conservatives made Parler, and then Amazon was like, okay, we're not going to let Parler use any of our like internet servers. And Apple was like, all right, we're not going to let Parler on the Apple Store. And it's like, okay, what? Like, what is that? So
Yeah.
they're just trying to censor and make sure that nobody can have dissenting opinions and get like the information that I find that's there for 5 minutes, and then you refresh your page and all of a sudden it's taken down. And you're like, well, where did it go? Like literally, like even on my Instagram, I follow Donald Trump Jr. and his posts never appear on my feed. And if I go to find the story, I have to go, and it's literally. I looked the other day because people were like, he was sharing stuff about it. His stories were behind the stories I'd already seen on Instagram.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, go look. If you follow him, go look. It's like, cause I thought it was like there's no way they're that blatant about it. No, they are, and like people will
It's
try
like
to
still
look
like highlighted.
yeah,
just,
but it's like behind. Like
everyone
I could
else.
watch your story, and then I would look, and I have to scroll all the way to the side, and his is past yours that I just watched, and it was like, they're not even trying to hide it. Which, like I said, hey, if you want to do that with your company, go for it. But you don't get to say, well, we're not doing that. Well, no, of course you're doing it.
Yeah.
But
That's not. So, do you think there's a solution to it, or is it just like it just sucks?
no, I honestly, like I said, with some of these things, I think the solution would be for them just to stop doing it, because they could do it. Literally, the click of a button, they could stop. But they don't want to because they know, like, okay, if we keep doing what we're doing, people are still going to use Facebook and Twitter. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Like I know that, like I've been. I think I told you. But I think it was right either before or after the election. I like went to post a story and it wouldn't let me.
Really?
Yeah, I went to push the button and it wouldn't let me do it. And then like the little thing to add a story, yeah, it was literally gone from my thing for like 2 days, and then it was back, and I was like,
Really? So you experienced?
No,
that.
literally, it was like, what do you?
Uh-huh.
It was just weird stuff like that, but
Right.
I don't know.
I am curious, just you personally, because you look at your Instagram, man, and I can tell you just don't give a crap what people think of you.
No, well, it's one of those things where it's like people, my parents have like said, and other people have said, like, bro, if you do stuff like that, like, how are you supposed to get a job? How are you supposed to do this? And it's like, dude, like, why would I want to be hired by someone who hates me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm me. I'm who I am. And like, I think, hey, there's certain things I could change. I shouldn't have Taco Bell as much as I do, or Ritos, but I do, and it's fine. But I think it's fine that I have the opinions I have, because I don't think they're dangerous.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think it's fine. Like, I mean, I think men are men, women are women, which I think is funny that the left, with like gender, it's like Kamala Harris is the first female, vice president or president in history, and it's like, well, you guys don't even believe in gender, so why does that? What do you mean? You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Like this whole, like, I think it was like day 1 or day 2 of Biden, he did the whole thing about how men can compete in women's sports.
Right.
And it's like, how are feminists not insanely angry at that?
Why do you think they'd be angry?
Well, because those aren't. I'm not a woman. I can't all of a sudden just go to USU and say, hey, I want to apply for this scholarship about, like, women, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Because I'm a man. But you have all these people now that are like, oh, like, well, good for them if they do it. That are dudes that are going to say, well, I can't get a scholarship for football, for weightlifting, for whatever, for track as a man. But if I just say I'm a woman, I'll get it.
Yeah.
Like,
I
if you want
know.
to talk about science being science, men are men and women are women. I think that's like as basic as you can be. There is no third, like Joe Biden said, there are at least 3 genders. What?
Yeah.
No, there's not. Like, if we found a single, like, bacteria on Mars or anywhere, we would, oh my gosh, we found life. But yet, like, with babies, they kill them after they're born. Third-term, late-term abortions, in my opinion, the biggest evil ever. That's disgusting.
I am curious your thoughts on abortion, because obviously I think as a member of the church, like, I feel like I have that belief mainly because of like my gospel beliefs, right?
Sure, yeah.
Like that's kind of the lens I see that topic in. I haven't really spent a ton of time in it, but I'm curious just from like a secular standpoint.
Yeah.
Like what are the implications of being for like late-term abortion?
Yeah, so here, I'll give you a story. So there was a lady, go back to my mission, my goodness, that I taught. She was like, she was like 70.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where she was getting her interview to be baptized. And we were like, oh, she's good to go. She got her interview, and she didn't pass. And we're like, what the heck? So then, like, the zone leader, like, or whatever, took us aside, and he was like, oh, we're like, so, like, what happened? And he's like, oh, well, she had, like, 2 abortions when she was younger. And we're like, oh, wow, okay, that never came up.
Yeah.
So then, like, I mean, she was a great lady. So we would, like, talk to her about what, we didn't ask her about what happened. We just would talk to her, and she brought it up. She's like, oh, yeah, and she told us. So when she was younger, she was married to this guy, and she got 2 abortions. She never even told him she was pregnant. This was her husband. Because she's like, yeah, I got married to him because, my family wanted me to do it and blah, blah, blah. But I really liked him, but I just didn't want to have his kids.
Yeah.
She's like, I always figured we wouldn't stay together forever. She's like, so I got pregnant. I just went, got the abortion. She's like, I never told him. So that guy, and then he got cancer. They got divorced, and he died a couple years later. So this dude died never knowing he had 2 kids.
Uh-huh.
So this whole idea of, like, I'm a woman, hear me roar, let me do whatever I want. It's like, she literally killed 2 people. Her husband, like, I'm sure he would have loved to know he had 2 children that were killed.
Uh-huh.
But because it was the woman's choice, he never even knew.
Uh-huh.
So for me, like, with abortions, it's like, I mean, the baby's heart beats after what, like 2 weeks? Like, what else, if someone's pregnant, what else is it? Was it going to be a turtle inside? Is it going to be a cat? Like, it's a human being.
Right.
Because I understand the whole, like, rape or incest thing. That's the thing I always love whenever I bring up, like, abortion to, like, liberals, especially members of the church. They're always like, well, yeah, what about people that are raped or it's incest? I'm like, I don't think anyone is against that. Like, we're all with you if you get raped. I
was going to say that's where I lie.
No, yeah, I think with
sure.
that, it's like that's a whole different thing.
Yeah. Because it's like if you're going to die because you have this kid.
No, right, exactly.
Or you got raped or, incest, like you said. Yeah.
Because I brought up on a Facebook argument with a chick, a girl from my mission once, because she was like, well, like, I had a friend who was going to die unless she got an abortion. And I was like, I don't know anyone that is against that. Like, if the mom's going to die, I mean, I feel like everyone's pretty clear on that. But all of a sudden, this idea that, like, well, no, it's not a baby until the mother decides. Because, like, I think it was in West Virginia. I mean, because then people can look this up. I think it was West Virginia or normal Virginia. The governor, I think it was like 2018, was like had the famous quote where he was talking about, like, because he legalized late-term abortions, or he wanted to, and he was like, well, what we do, the baby is delivered, or he literally said like the infant is delivered, and then will be put aside in a separate room, and then the mother and the doctor decide what to do. But the baby's alive; it's literally just laying on a table. Uh-huh. So then the mom could have the baby and say, all right, just kill it.
So it sounds like the big, I guess, controversy with it right now is it's like, should the woman have the entire say in keeping the baby?
She has unlimited say.
And it sounds like you're saying that the man should have some say.
Anything. Like I said, this is like I said with the lady, it was her husband. And she already said she wasn't raped. She was like, yeah, I'm married to him. He's a nice guy. It was such a weird conversation. She's like, yeah, he was a really nice guy, but like I just always knew like it probably wouldn't last. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
So I don't know, with the whole abortion thing. To me, that's like the biggest black and white, like that and the gender thing is the biggest things where it's like it's so clear to me. I mean, just what seems right, because it's like I'm a man, you're a man, and if you're pregnant, it's a baby. Like, it's a human being. It's not like, well, we'll see. Maybe she's just she had too much Taco Bell. We'll see what happens. No, it's a baby.
Uh-huh.
Like, I have 2 nieces. Like, they're babies. Like, you can feel them kick. Like, you can get an ultrasound. You can see them.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's always been a weird one that people are even float that idea.
Yeah, I know. It definitely is interesting. I listened to a Rogan episode a couple months ago, but he was talking to a guy that was for like, transgenders competing in the opposite gender sport or whatever, or the one they transition to, right? So like a male transitions to a woman, and then she goes and competes in female sport, right? And Rogan got like really upset about it because it's like biologically, like there's a reason. Like you look at just like marathon times, like the world record male marathon time versus the female marathon time, like the margins are huge, or even weightlifting, right?
Yeah, sure.
So it's interesting to maybe I just need to hear more perspectives on it, but at least like the way I see it, it's like that's pretty cut and dry as to why you wouldn't want to mix.
No, right. Like
competing like that.
I don't see why it's bad to say men are men, women are women. Women are better at some things than men are, and men are better at some things than women are.
Yeah.
Like I remember, like there's a big one that like opened my eyes to this idea of like gender was freaking it was like the Navy SEALs. So to be a Navy SEAL, like I think it's like out of every class that tries, there's like 300 and like 5 make it or something. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But so literally of the 300 and the 300, these are freaking dudes that are in shape. They're good to go.
Sure.
But then they only take 5 because the crap they put them through is insane. Because I mean, it makes sense. The government, the U.S. wants the best of the best of the best.
Yeah.
So that's why we get these 5 because these are the 5 that are the best. But a couple of years ago, I think they were getting like sued because there was no women that were like Navy SEALs.
Huh.
Because I think it was Marcus Luttrell, I think, was talking about it. And he's like, well, there's a reason. It's because you have to be able to lift X amount of weight because, like, if your buddy gets shot, you have to lift him and carry him out. And you have to be able to do this. You have to do this. And he literally said, he's like, women try out, but they just haven't made it. And it's not because they suck. It's because, like, there are certain literally things that, like, maybe they just can't get to do. But then other things, they're way better. Like, I don't see why that's a bad thing to say that men are better at some things than women are. Women are better at some things than men are.
That's interesting because I'd imagine the opposing argument is like, oh, well, they were just biased and that's why they don't.
No, I mean, right? I mean, like I said, I think if you want to make standards for, like, you have to be able to run a mile this fast or lift this much or this or this or this, I don't see why that's a problem. Because it's like, I would hope if I was a SEAL, I want the dude next to me to be the best. If it's a woman, great.
Yeah.
If it's a man, great.
Sure.
Like, I always thought it was funny, like, with Kamala or Hillary, and people are like, we need the first woman president. Or like, Joe. Joe was like, I will pick, my VP will be a woman. And it's like, how about you just pick the person who's best for the job? Because here's Joe would have been a genius, but we know he's not because, I mean, my goodness. But he would have been a genius if he would have said this, I'm going to pick the best person ever. I'm going to pick the most qualified person on the planet. And then if he would have announced Kamala, everyone would have been like, oh, okay. But what he did was, first he said, I'm only going to pick a woman. And it's like, oh, all right. And then he said, I'm only going to pick a black woman. And it's like, okay, so there's not very many people you can pick. And then he picked her, and it was like, oh, shock. But if he would have just said, I'm picking the best person, even if he didn't believe it, that would have been the way to go. Because then everyone would have been like, okay, this is the person who he said is the best. No. He literally, he just cut all these people out for no reason. Just to fit, say, oh, look at me, wow. I don't know.
So I am curious on this because you've been an advocate for Trump for years. I feel like at this point, why do you think he lost the election?
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty clear. I mean, the fraud. I mean, it was pretty. I remember you were at our apartment the night of the election.
Yeah.
And it was like I think 11 o'clock, and we were all like, yeah, I mean, he won because he was up by like I think in Pennsylvania 700,000 votes.
Sure.
All the states he was up. And then all of a sudden, they all, at the same time, they all said, all right, we're going to stop counting, and we're just going to start in the morning. And then at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, all of a sudden, you're getting these dumps of like, I remember there was the one dump in Wisconsin of 138,000 for Biden, 0 for Trump. And it was like, what? So, I don't know. That was like so baffling. And so many people didn't even know like that these things were happening. And it's like, all these statisticians, many of whom were liberal, were literally saying, the odds of what happened from when all the polls closed or when they stopped counting to like the next morning happening was like 1 in like 34 quadrillion or something.
Really?
They're like, this could not happen.
And I'm curious what your thoughts are on this too, because I mean there's a huge talk on that, but I remember because that. And Trump was posting about that for a long time about just like, hey, it was rigged. Like almost, I don't even know if he ever like completely conceded, did he?
Not really, no.
He kind of just like.
And good for him.
Yeah, but I remember because I mean I voted for Trump.
Yeah.
Right? I was all for it.
Yeah.
But I think I did feel bad a little bit, like how long he kept saying like it was a fraud.
Yeah.
And it just like I felt like kept. Like emotions high when they didn't need to be, or it seemed like pretty clear that he lost.
Yeah, no, so here's my thing. So if Biden, and still he can do it right now, if he actually thinks he won with like 81 million votes, why doesn't he do an investigation into it to prove I won, Trump? He doesn't do it.
Well, because he won and he doesn't care. Like
no, here's the thing. If I was like I said, if he was smart, he would have done the thing with Kamala. So here's what I'm saying he should do right now. If he actually thinks that he was elected by the greatest, like, with 81 million votes, what he would have done is the whole time he would have been saying, yeah, look into it, investigate it. I'll answer any questions, look into whatever you want, do this. And
so
then
be transparent about it.
Yes, because then he's like, look, because if he actually believed he won, wouldn't you want to prove it and shove it in Trump's face and all of his supporters? He didn't do it.
True.
Because my thing is this: people like liberals. I brought it to a liberal like, a couple weeks ago, and because I said the same thing. I was like, it was fraud, and he was like, well, bro, like. There were because even like people in the government were like, oh, there was no proof of fraud. We didn't have to, there was no investigations. It's like, exactly, you didn't look into it. You can't say there's no investigations if you didn't even look into it. Like with this whole Russia thing that they looked into for years with Trump, they found nothing, but they still did. And Trump was like, hey, look into me. I didn't do anything, and they found nothing. But then when it comes to the election, they're like, oh, well, we're not, looking into these places. When
Right.
I'm sure you've seen a lot of the videos that I've seen where they're boarding up the windows when they're counting the votes. And it's like, well, why are you boarding up the windows? Yeah. Like, it's just stuff like that. Like, look, maybe Biden did win. Well, I think we should know. I think they should investigate it. I think all the videos and stuff we've seen of the boarding up and the this and the this, I mean, I think that's worth looking into, but apparently other people don't.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm curious, too, because with the... I just forgot what I was gonna say, but there obviously was a lot of controversy with that whole thing, and I think that is unfortunate it just played out that way.
Yeah.
But I think it's just why do you think the country is so polarized?
Oh, the media.
Media.
100%.
And do you think that's just because like people are just in the echo chambers of seeing what they want to see?
No, they have a narrative they want to push, and they know people. Like I said, if you see something that you like kind of agree with, you're gonna like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you've seen on Facebook people just share stuff that's like absolutely not true, and you're like, wait, what? So it's like it's so, because now, I mean, like with Biden, they don't even try to hide their like lust for him and Kamala. Like the other day, they literally, because his like press secretary can't answer any questions. She's always like,
let's circle back.
Yeah, I'll circle back. They released like some statement the other day saying, we want all of our questions submitted to the White House before the press conference.
Oh, really?
And it's like, wait, what? Why? Like, you need to be able to answer these questions. Like, if you're the press secretary, like with Trump's lady, she had like the book. She'd open the page. Okay, here's this, blah blah blah, and she'd answer it. But now they're like, oh no, we need everything submitted in advance. We need to approve these questions. It's like, okay, that's what? Why?
Yeah.
So it's just the media, dude. Like, they get paid off. Like, I mean, you got to look at who pays the bills. You always got to follow the money on these things.
Sure.
So I mean, like I said, like with a lot of these big corporations, I would agree they have too much power. But they have too much power not just because like they have all this money, but because they've paid off politicians. They pay off, media groups. Like Disney owns like 33% of all media or something. It's insane.
Yeah, huge monopoly.
And like they're like in love with China. Like they filmed Mulan in China, like 50 miles away from a concentration camp of Muslims.
Holy.
Yeah. And Disney had the freaking huevos to thank President Xi. They said, thank you, President Xi, you're so great. Thank you for letting us film in China. And it's like, dude, you guys have concentration camps 50 miles away from where you were filming.
Wow.
Like, I don't. It's just like I said. You look at who's paying the bills of all these companies, all these politicians. That tells you pretty much all you need to know.
That's just so hard to see it. Like, cause I still like just feel like sick thinking about it. Like, even if you were to just look at both sides, like I said, it's just so biased.
No,
on
it
both
is.
Sides,
it is.
And I think it is fair to say that you do like the liberal agenda is pushed way more, or seen in a better light. But it's so hard to find sources,
Yeah, because some people, I mean, one time a dude was like, oh, bro, like, you just, anything, like, Republican you like. And I'm like, dude, like, they're, like, all weasels. Like I said, like, to me, like, Trump is, like, this, like, orange, like, knight.
Yeah.
It was, like, he literally just came in, like he said he was going to do, I'm just going to show you guys for what it all is, and he did. So that's why everyone's pissed at each other, because he showed you for what you really were.
Right.
Because I remember there's, like, did you ever see, I think it's called, like, Frost v. Nixon. It's a movie. I think that's what it was. There's a part. It's an all right movie, but there's a part in it where it's Nixon, and he's looking at a picture of JFK, and he looks at it and he says, he's like, when people look at you, they see what they want to be, and when they look at me, they see how they really are. And that is like what Trump is.
Say that one more time.
So he looks at JFK and he says, when people look at you, they see what they want to be, or they saw what they wanted to be. When they look at me, they see what they really are.
Okay.
So with Trump, it's the same kind of thing. They just see, because he just brought out, like, okay, they're doing this, they're saying this, and everyone, but then he gets the blame for it.
Right.
The people doing it don't get the blame. They blame the guy who says, oh, look, what are you doing? So he's like this villain when he was always loved before he ran. Always loved.
Because he was just the business guy.
Yeah, they loved him. He was rich.
Care.
He was great. Hey, he's rich. He's great. Hey.
He's straight up and famous for saying, you're fired.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, and then all of a sudden he was president or running, and they're like, oh, he's evil and he's rich. And it's like, wait, whoa, where's this coming from? Like,
Part of me wishes I was around for that first election.
Oh,
That's
I
on my
do so
mission
bad.
too, just
I
because
know.
I heard things were nuts. Because
I do too.
I know a lot of people, from what I've heard, voted for him because they just saw him as a big fu to the system.
No, and he
And
was.
just wanted
Hey,
him to
no, he
shake
was.
things up, you know?
No, he was. Because I mean, on the border, dude, it was like I was gonna vote for that freaking McMullen guy, the LDS guy.
Uh-huh.
That's how dumb I was. But like I said, I was like I didn't know anything. I would just like hear these like bits from
Yeah.
people, and then as soon as I actually learned what the was actually happening, I was like, okay, well I got to go for Donnie T. But yeah, dude, it was. I don't know, because I mean, like I said, you got to have your mind open to things. Like,
Sure.
look, I might be wrong about things, and I'm willing to admit that I am. Because like I used to be super against like marijuana and like
Yeah.
all like drugs, but now like I'm like I mean I've never done them, but like I'm so in favor of it because it's like alcohol's legal. You
Yeah.
can go drink, get in your car, and just do so much havoc, but
Uh-huh.
you can't smoke a joint in your house.
Totally.
Makes you happy, it does this.
Right.
Doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I was even telling Trevor that too, like, because I used to be that. And maybe I was just in the lens
Yeah.
of being a member of the church too, but it was like, yeah, like if there is this black market and people are going to
Oh.
get drugs, and obviously the war on drugs has not worked by just
No.
arresting drug dealers and people that are using, like that's not solving anything.
No.
I think it is a totally interesting approach to say, hey, well, let's just legalize it,
Right.
make this taxable income
Right.
and, provide jobs and provide a clean way for people to use.
Right. Because if
You know?
they were to legalize it, like let's say Joey B said we're legalizing marijuana, the cartels would like die overnight. Because like I
Yeah.
said, I was down there. They smuggle women and children, which is horrible, and they smuggle
Sure.
drugs. That's it. So if you were to all of a sudden cut out half their business, it's like, oh, okay. Because also like with drugs, I mean, it's like you said, you can tax it.
Yeah.
So like the government should want to wet their beak with that, but it's literally just like I said, it's just these people paying off politicians to not want to legalize it, and
Uh-huh.
I mean that's what it is.
Interesting, man. Well, I guess we're almost out of time, man, but I guess I'm just curious as a final segment, how important do you feel it is to be involved in politics? Because I feel like a lot of people could argue that you're just going to get pissed off looking at it,
Right.
you're going to become very opinionated and that you're not going to have very much impact.
Yeah, I mean, since the election, I've toned down a lot because I realized like, oh wow, there are just these group of lizards that control the world. So I've toned down a lot since November because I realized like, oh, it didn't even matter really because it was so blatantly. If you actually look at what happened, if you really look into it, it's like, okay, there was fishy stuff going on here. But I still think it's super important to be involved, like especially with
Yeah.
your state, because I know like with Utah, like I think Utah's growing great. Like you look at like the states that are run the worst and the most debt with the most unemployment, they're always Democrat states.
Sure.
You look at Utah, it's like one of the reddest states. It's doing great.
Yeah.
It's doing great. And like, look, we have great leaders. We have good people running, but you definitely need to be involved because
Totally.
like I feel like you can't not be involved and then complain about it.
Uh-huh.
Because I know tons of people that are like, oh, I don't vote, I don't do this, but they all suck. It's like, well, then why don't you run?
Yeah.
Like, why don't you do something about it? You can't complain about it. Like, you can't say how, like, I've never been to Taco Bell, but it sucks. Well, go. Like,
Have you
go,
tried
and then
it?
maybe it sucks. Yeah, maybe it isn't good. Maybe it'll
Yeah,
change your
yeah.
life. Change my life. Look at my hat. But I don't know. I think it's important to be involved.
Yeah.
And I'm sure as things go, it'll be good. Because even like Trump, since he lost, he's like now just gonna push for like conservative people to run
Yeah.
and replace the rhinos, which I think's great. But
Right. I know one thing, and I definitely fell into this too, and I bet a lot of people do as well. I feel like so much of the presidential election was just Trump versus Biden.
yeah,
But you look at your ballot, there's literally I can't remember how many selections, but
There's
I
a
feel like 30 plus more. I can't remember, like a lot of different people to vote for.
Right.
Just in local government.
Right.
And literally Trump or Biden or the Kanye West or whatever, there was like, that was what the whole election was about.
right.
But there's so many other things like that affect your local government.
Oh yeah.
And there's one girl I was talking to. She's pretty involved with local government.
Mhm.
Lives down in Provo, and she said that she just read up on the agenda one day, and there was they're gonna parking in Provo's awful.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm sure people listening who are down there realize that. But like just on the city agenda, they were wanting to like make the what was it? The apartment buildings be responsible for the parking
Mhm.
out on like public roads.
Mhm.
And so she wrote her senator, I forget it's a congressman. I can't remember the
It's like
name of the-
congressman, yeah.
Yeah. Wrote a letter to him just like, hey, no, like,
Right.
we want to be able to park on the street, you
Oh,
know?
sure.
And who knows if that made the difference, but
Right.
it was like she got a personal email from him,
Right.
you know, and could have had impact,
No, sure.
you know?
Yeah.
So
No,
I don't
yeah.
feel like people are involved enough in local
No.
politics that could actually really make a difference in their lives.
No, sure. Well, no, like over the summer, I got like a little involved with a dude running for governor, just because, like I said, I looked into the people running,
Yeah.
and the thing that woke me up was like this dude he used to be like some, I can't remember exactly now. He was some like high-ranking Democrat in Utah.
Yeah.
He came out and he said, "Hey, all Democrats in Utah, switch your party to Republican and vote for John Huntsman for governor. That way we can have like the most liberal, conservative governor possible."
Uh-huh.
And so the one dude, he said vote for Huntsman, he said vote for Cox. Either or. That's what the Democrat guy said. So then you look and it's like then you're left with Greg Hughes and I can't remember the other dude's name, something. But it was like you're left with these two dudes, so you look into them and it's like, well, it worries me that this Democrat guy is saying vote for these two dudes, but don't vote for these other two.
Yeah.
So then I got involved with one of the other dudes, and he obviously didn't win, but I got to meet him, and he was super down to earth guy, super like conservative guy, and like I said, it was super easy. Like I literally met him at a park in Roy,
Yeah.
like he was just chilling there, like at this like rally thing,
Sure.
and we got to talk to him and whatnot. But yeah, it's super easy to get involved though.
Cool, man. Well, Sam, we're going to have to end it there.
Sounds good.
Those of
dude.
you just listening, if you want to go back and see what Sam Mason looks like, we are on YouTube, so go ahead and
Oh
check
no!
us
Don't
out
do
there.
it! Don't do it! Yeah, you don't
And
want to do
Sam,
that.
Sam, where can they find you at if they want to see your political memes?
What? Oh my goodness! I don't remember. What's my Instagram?
It's like
it's
Kent Alamo,
I think it's
isn't it?
Kent Alamo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can look. I think it's Kent Alamo. Let's see. Yeah, so it's Kent Alamo, and you'll love it. There's a picture of me and my niece with an American flag behind me, so it's good stuff. But
Right.
yeah, dude.
Well, thanks, Sam, for coming on.
Thanks for having me,
And,
dude.
Yeah. Take care.
Shalom.
See you later, everyone. Okay.
Oh, I almost took my mask off, dude.